To keep seeing more stories, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. If you like this video, share your feedback in the comments section. The Desperate Night. Olivia Bennett stood frozen in the hospital corridor, her hands gripping crumpled admission forms so tightly that her knuckles had turned white against her pale skin. The fluorescent lights above hummed their indifferent tune as the receptionist's words echoed through her mind like a death sentence. Without proper insurance coverage or a deposit of $15,000, we cannot proceed with your daughter's emergency surgery. Behind the reception desk, the woman in navy scrubs barely looked up from her computer screen, her fingers clicking away at the keyboard as though Olivia's breaking heart was nothing more than background noise. The emergency room buzzed with controlled chaos around them. Nurses rushed past with clipboards. Doctors consulted in hushed tones. Somewhere down the hall, machines beeped their steady rhythm. But for Olivia, the world had narrowed to this single moment of crushing helplessness. Her emerald eyes, already red from crying, filled with fresh tears as she glanced back toward the examination room where her 5-year-old daughter Sophie lay struggling for each breath. The little girl's face had taken on a frightening blue tinge around her lips, and her small chest heaved with the effort of pulling air into her failing lungs. The pediatric specialist had been clear. Sophie's congenital heart defect had reached a critical point. Without immediate surgical intervention, she might not survive the night. Olivia had known this day might come. For 5 years, she had lived with the shadow of Sophie's condition hanging over every moment of their lives. She had worked herself to exhaustion, juggling shifts at the downtown diner, weekend cleaning jobs at office buildings, and late-night stocking work at the grocery store. Every penny had gone toward medical bills, medications, and the slowly growing savings account that was supposed to cover this exact emergency. But 3 months ago, her landlord had raised the rent unexpectedly. Then her ancient car had broken down, requiring repairs she could not avoid. The medical fund had been depleted, and now she stood $15,000 short of saving her daughter's life. The waiting area was packed with people nursing various injuries and illnesses. A construction worker held an ice pack to his swollen hand. An elderly woman dozed in her wheelchair while her daughter filled out paperwork. A young couple whispered anxiously, the woman's pregnant belly prominent beneath her jacket. All of them would receive care. All of them had what Olivia lacked. She approached the desk again, her voice breaking as she pleaded. "Please, there must be something you can do. She is only 5 years old. I can set up a payment plan. I will work extra shifts. I will pay every single dollar back. I promise." The receptionist finally looked up, and Olivia saw something flicker across her face. Was it sympathy? Pity? But the woman's expression quickly returned to professional neutrality. "I understand this is difficult, but hospital policy is very clear. We have financial assistance programs, but they require weeks of processing. For emergency surgery, we need immediate payment or verified insurance coverage." Olivia felt her legs growing weak. She had no family to call. Her parents had passed away years ago, and she had no siblings. Her friends were all struggling just as she was, working minimum wage jobs and barely scraping by themselves. The banks had already denied her loan applications. She had tried everything, exhausted every option, and now she stood in this sterile hallway watching her daughter slip away while bureaucracy and policy formed an impenetrable wall between them and survival. She stumbled toward a chair in the waiting area, collapsing into it as sobs racked her body. Her red hair, usually pulled back neatly for work, had come loose from its tie, falling around her face in disheveled waves. Her waitress uniform was stained with coffee from the rushed end of her shift when the babysitter had called in panic. She had run from the diner without even clocking out, her only thought to reach Sophie as fast as possible. Through her tears, Olivia became aware of someone standing nearby. She looked up to find a man watching her with an expression of intense focus. He was tall and powerfully built, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than she earned in 6 months. His dark hair was styled perfectly, and his strong jaw was set in a firm line. But it was his eyes that caught her attention. They were deep brown, almost black, and they looked at her not with pity but with something else. Understanding, perhaps. Or recognition. Vincent Romano had been at the hospital visiting one of his associates who had been injured in a business dispute. He was a man accustomed to power, to getting what he wanted through force of will and the weight of his reputation. As the head of the Romano family, he controlled most of the business operations in the city's east side, both legitimate and otherwise. He was feared, respected, and very rarely moved by displays of emotion. But something about the red-haired woman crying in the waiting room had stopped him in his tracks. He had watched her desperate negotiation with the receptionist, heard the raw anguish in her voice as she begged for her daughter's life. He had seen her crumble under the weight of impossible circumstances, and he had felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Vincent had built his empire on calculated decisions and strategic moves. Emotion was a weakness in his world, something to be controlled and never displayed. Yet here he stood, rooted to the spot, unable to walk away from this stranger's tragedy. Perhaps it was because he had lost his own mother to medical neglect when he was young, turned away from a hospital because his immigrant family could not pay. Perhaps it was simply that he recognized genuine love and desperation when he saw it. He made his decision in an instant, the way he always did. Walking past Olivia without a word, Vincent approached the reception desk with the commanding presence that made hardened criminals step aside. The receptionist looked up, and her eyes widened slightly as she recognized him. Everyone in this city knew who Vincent Romano was, the unexpected alliance. The receptionist's professional mask slipped for just a moment as Vincent Romano placed both hands on her desk and leaned forward with deliberate intensity. His voice was quiet but carried the weight of absolute authority. The woman in the waiting area with the red hair. Her daughter needs emergency surgery tonight. The receptionist swallowed hard, her eyes darting between Vincent and her computer screen. Yes, sir, but without payment or insurance, hospital policy requires that we cannot admit patients for elective procedures. Vincent's expression did not change, but something in his eyes made the woman shift uncomfortably in her chair. This is not elective. The child is dying. You will admit her immediately, and you will assign your best cardiac surgeon to her case. I will handle all financial arrangements. But sir, the protocols require verification and authorization forms before we can process a private payment of this magnitude. The administration office does not open until morning, and without proper documentation, I cannot override the system to admit her for surgery. Vincent straightened to his full height, pulling a platinum card from his wallet along with his phone. He dialed a number without breaking eye contact with the increasingly nervous receptionist. His call was answered on the first ring. This is Vincent Romano. I need to speak with Director Chen immediately. Tell him it is urgent. There was a brief pause before a man's voice came through the speaker, loud enough for the receptionist to hear. Vincent, what can I do for you at this hour? Director Chen, I am standing in your emergency room where a 5-year-old girl is being denied life-saving cardiac surgery because of payment issues. I want her admitted within the next 10 minutes, and I want Dr. Harrison Pierce to perform the procedure. I will transfer $200,000 to the hospital foundation account within the hour as a donation, and I will cover all costs associated with the child's care, recovery, and any future medical needs related to this condition. The silence on the other end lasted only a moment. Consider it done. Put the receptionist on the line. Vincent handed his phone across the desk. The woman took it with trembling hands, listened for 30 seconds, and then ended the call with a shaky yes sir repeated 3 times. She immediately began typing with renewed urgency, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She will be admitted right away, Mr. Romano. I will personally escort the patient to the surgical prep area and notify Dr. Pierce's team immediately. Vincent nodded once and turned to find Olivia standing a few feet behind him, her face a mixture of shock, confusion, and desperate hope. She had heard everything, but her mind struggled to process what had just happened. This stranger, this obviously powerful and wealthy man, had just offered to save Sophie's life without knowing anything about them. "Who are you?" Olivia whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. "Why would you do this for us?" Vincent studied her for a long moment, taking in her exhausted features, her wrinkled uniform, her eyes that held more strength than she probably realized. "My name is Vincent Romano. As for why I am doing this, let us just say I understand what it means to watch someone you love suffer because the system values money more than human life. No child should die because her mother cannot afford to save her." Before Olivia could respond, a team of nurses appeared with a wheelchair and urgent instructions. Within minutes, Sophie was being wheeled toward the surgical wing, her small hand reaching out for her mother. Olivia rushed alongside the gurney, holding that tiny hand and whispering reassurances even as her own heart raced with terror and fragile hope. Vincent followed at a distance, making additional calls to ensure everything would proceed smoothly. He contacted his own physician to verify that Dr. Harrison Pierce was indeed the best pediatric cardiac surgeon in the region. He arranged for a private recovery room. He instructed his assistant to have food and fresh clothing delivered for Olivia, knowing she would not leave the hospital until her daughter was safe. The surgery took 6 hours. Olivia spent every minute of it in the surgical waiting room, pacing the floor until her feet ached, praying to a God she had not spoken to in years, and trying not to imagine the worst. Vincent remained with her, sitting quietly in the corner, making no demands for gratitude or explanation. His presence was steady and strangely comforting, even though Olivia knew she should probably be afraid of him. She had heard the name Romano before. Everyone in the city had. The Romano family was spoken about in whispers, associated with everything from construction contracts to nightclub ownership to rumors of less legal enterprises. Vincent Romano was not a man you wanted to owe a favor to, or so the stories went. Yet here he sat, asking nothing from her, simply waiting alongside her through the longest night of her life. As dawn began to lighten the windows, Dr. Pierce finally emerged from the surgical suite, still in his scrubs but with a tired smile on his face. The surgery was successful. "We repaired the septal defect and reinforced the valve. Sophie came through beautifully. She is strong, that little girl. She will need monitoring and follow-up care, but I expect a full recovery." Olivia's legs gave out completely. She sank to the floor, sobbing with relief so profound it felt like her entire body might shatter from the force of it. Vincent was beside her in an instant, helping her back to her feet with surprising gentleness for such a powerful man. She collapsed against his chest without thinking, and his arms came around her as she cried tears of gratitude and exhaustion and overwhelming emotion. When she finally pulled back, embarrassed by her display, Vincent handed her a handkerchief from his pocket. "You can see her soon. Dr. Pierce said she will be moved to recovery within the hour." Olivia wiped her eyes, looking up at this stranger who had become her daughter's savior. "I do not know how to thank you. I do not know how I will ever repay you for what you have done." Vincent's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "You do not owe me anything, Olivia. Sometimes we help people because it is the right thing to do, not because we expect something in return." But Olivia knew the world did not work that way, especially not the world that men like Vincent Romano inhabited. There would be a price eventually. There always was. Yet as she looked into his dark eyes, she saw something that confused her. She saw sincerity. She saw a man who carried his own burdens and his own pain, hidden beneath the expensive suit and the commanding presence. "You should rest," Vincent said quietly. "There is a private room arranged for you adjacent to Sophie's recovery suite. Food and clean clothes have been delivered. Your daughter will need you to be strong when she wakes up." "Will you be here?" Olivia asked, surprising herself with the question. The thought of this stranger leaving felt suddenly unbearable, as though he had become an anchor in the storm of her life. Vincent hesitated, something flickering across his face that might have been surprise or pleasure. "If you want me to be, then yes. I will be here. A new beginning." 3 weeks had passed since the night that changed everything. Sophie was recovering beautifully in a private room that overlooked the hospital gardens, her color returning more each day as her repaired heart grew stronger. The medical staff marveled at her resilience, and Dr. Pierce visited daily, clearly pleased with his young patient's progress. Olivia had barely left her daughter's side, sleeping in the adjoining room that Vincent had arranged, eating the meals that appeared regularly, and slowly beginning to process the magnitude of what had happened. The hospital bills that arrived were marked paid in full. The follow-up care appointments were scheduled and prepaid. Even the medications Sophie would need were covered for the next 5 years. Vincent came every evening, always bringing something small for Sophie. A stuffed animal. A children's book. A puzzle to keep her occupied during the long recovery hours. He would sit in the chair by the window and tell stories that made Sophie laugh, carefully edited tales of his childhood in the old neighborhood that left out anything dark or dangerous. Olivia watched these interactions with growing wonder, seeing a side of Vincent Romano that she suspected few people ever witnessed. On the evening of Sophie's 18th day in recovery, Dr. Pierce announced that she could go home the following week. The news filled Olivia with joy and immediate terror. Home meant the cramped one-bedroom apartment with its broken heater and thin walls. Home meant returning to impossible work schedules and constant financial stress. Home meant existing in the reality she had briefly escaped. That night, after Sophie had fallen asleep, Olivia found Vincent in the hallway, speaking quietly on his phone. He ended the call when he saw her and gave her his full attention with that focused intensity that still made her heart skip. "Can we talk?" Olivia asked, wrapping her cardigan tighter around herself. Vincent nodded and gestured toward the family lounge at the end of the corridor. They sat in the empty room, the city lights twinkling through the windows, and for a long moment, neither spoke. "I need to understand why you did this," Olivia finally said. "People do not just give away hundreds of thousands of dollars to strangers. There has to be a reason. There has to be something you want from me." Vincent leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "What if I told you that watching your daughter fight for her life reminded me of my own mother? She died when I was 8 years old because we could not afford the medical care she needed. I watched her fade away while doctors turned us away, and I swore that if I ever had the power to prevent that from happening to someone else, I would use it." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes again. She had cried more in the past 3 weeks than in the previous 3 years. "I am sorry about your mother. But that does not explain why you have stayed. Why you come here every night. Why you look at me the way you do." The admission hung in the air between them, and Olivia felt her cheeks flush. She had not meant to say that last part, but it was true. She had caught Vincent watching her with an expression that went beyond simple kindness or charitable interest. There was something deeper there, something that both frightened and thrilled her. Vincent stood and walked to the window, his back to her as he spoke. "My life is complicated, Olivia. I have built an empire that requires constant vigilance and difficult decisions. I have enemies who would use any weakness against me. I have responsibilities that do not allow for simple happiness or ordinary relationships. For years, I accepted that this was my reality. That I would remain alone because caring about someone meant making them a target." He turned to face her, and the vulnerability in his eyes took her breath away. "Then I saw you fighting for your daughter with a strength and love that reminded me what really matters in this world. You work yourself to exhaustion for her. You would give anything for her. You possess a kind of courage that has nothing to do with violence or power and everything to do with the human heart. I stayed because being near you makes me remember the man I wanted to become before life made me into something harder." Olivia rose slowly, crossing the room until she stood directly in front of him. "This is insane. We barely know each other. You are a stranger who saved my daughter's life, and now you are telling me that you have feelings for me. How am I supposed to believe this is real and not some elaborate game?" Vincent reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently tucked a strand of red hair behind her ear. His touch was warm and careful. "I have never been good with words, Olivia. I am better at actions. So let me show you what I mean. Come work for me. Olivia blinked in confusion. What? I own several legitimate businesses. Restaurants, a catering company, an event planning service. You are intelligent, hardworking, and excellent with people. I can offer you a management position with a real salary, benefits, and reasonable hours. You would be able to support Sophie without killing yourself. No strings attached. If you want nothing to do with me personally, I will respect that. But please, let me help you build a better life for your daughter. The offer was too good to be true, and every instinct told Olivia to be suspicious. Yet when she looked into Vincent's eyes, she saw only sincerity and a hopeful uncertainty that such a powerful man should not possess. He was offering her a lifeline without demanding anything in return, and she realized with startling clarity that she trusted him. Over the following months, Olivia's life transformed in ways she had never imagined possible. She took the management position at Vincent's upscale restaurant downtown, discovering that she had a natural talent for hospitality and business. Sophie thrived in a real home, a comfortable townhouse that Vincent helped Olivia lease with her new income. The little girl's health improved dramatically, and her laughter filled rooms that had been silent for too long. Vincent courted Olivia with old-fashioned patience, never pushing, always respecting her boundaries. He took them to Sunday brunches and afternoon walks in the park. He taught Sophie to play chess and helped her with her homework. He showed Olivia parts of the city she had never seen, shared stories of his past both good and bad, and slowly revealed the complicated man beneath the fearsome reputation. Olivia fell in love gradually and then all at once. She fell for the way Vincent listened when she talked about her dreams. She fell for his quiet strength and unexpected gentleness. She fell for the way he made her feel safe and valued and seen. And when he finally kissed her on a starlit evening 6 months after they met, she knew with absolute certainty that this was real. Standing in the hospital chapel on their wedding day a year later, Olivia looked at Sophie, healthy and radiant in her flower girl dress, and then at Vincent, handsome in his tailored suit with tears in his eyes as she walked down the aisle. The journey from that desperate night in the emergency room to this moment of perfect joy seemed impossible, and yet here they stood. As Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger and promised to love and protect both her and Sophie for the rest of his life, Olivia understood that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the person you feared might be the one who saves you. And sometimes love finds you in the darkest moments and transforms everything into light. Their kiss sealed a promise that had been written that first night when a powerful man chose compassion over indifference, when a desperate mother accepted help from a stranger, and when two broken souls found in each other the healing they both desperately needed. The life ahead would have its challenges, but they would face them together, a family forged not by blood or circumstance but by choice, love, and the unbreakable bonds of the heart.